Hello, and welcome to the W.A.I.T channel. What Am I Thinking? A podcast where two sisters share uplifting conversations on fun and sometimes serious topics.
Join us each week by clicking the notification bell and subscribing to our channel. If you enjoy the show, use the share link. It's one of the best ways to expand the conversation.
Welcome to the W.A.I.T channel. What am I thinking? So we are doing Summer House Part 2. So if you haven't listened to Part 1, please go back and listen. So in Part 1, we discussed the dynamics in the house, gave a little background on Summer House. So if you're not a watcher, that's even the more reason to go back and listen to Part 1 first. We talked about the history of the show. We talked about the new relationships. We did a deep dive on Sierra and Maya and Alex being people of color in the house in the Hamptons. Mm-hmm. And we talked about Kyle and Amanda's relationship. So now we would like to give a little time to Paige, who was in the spinoff of Winter House with Andrea. And Andrea was in a non-committal place in Winter House, but Paige could have really been all in if he had given her those vibes. Those vibes didn't show up for Andrea until after they left the house. Somebody else that was in Winter House was Craig, who Paige and Craig have a history of being friends. Neither one of them have ever been single at the same time, so that's why it always stayed in the friend zone. And even in the house, even though Craig's girlfriend Natalie was not in the house, he was being a faithful boyfriend to Natalie and was not showing any interest to anybody in the house. He was just hanging out, having fun. Well, once they're out of the house, that relationship with Natalie ends. Paige is not in a relationship. Her and Andrea are still just talking. However, from Andrea's side, he has decided that maybe he should really give Paige a serious look. But he decides just a little too late, because just as he is warming up and heating up to the idea, Craig and Paige decide to explore the possibilities. But they explore it in a way that's very footloose and fancy-free and non-committal. So neither one of them are committed, but they are definitely hanging out and probably doing the horizontal mambo. And so when they come back into Summer House, Andrea comes back in and he is really feeling Paige. And Paige is giving him attention because she's not committed to Craig. They talk about it, and she lets Andrea know that there's still a chance for him. Even when Craig comes to visit, there's a revelation that they find out that it's Craig, not Austin, that's having this relationship with Kristen in Nashville. And I'm not going to say the last name, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows the Kristen we're speaking of. And that kind of upsets Paige because she didn't realize that they were actually having sex. She thought they were just kind of hanging out, making out. But once she realizes that, she feels some kind of way. But Craig is like, hey, we both said that we're not in a committed relationship. So Andrea once Craig is gone from the house, he continues to ramp up his affections for Paige, and she's receptive. But she said it's almost like Craig has some kind of radar, because every time that happens and she feels herself possibly, it's like he's on the phone and he's filling her love tank in ways that she didn't expect him to be on it from a distance. So I think he wants to try to make another visit to kind of solidify things with her. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. And since Andrea and her have been more affectionate since his last visit, if he comes back for another visit, I'm wondering how that will play out and if he can just go back into the recesses like he was. But I'm proud of Paige being able to, because it's not easy. Men are sometimes better at playing the field and keeping their feelings and emotions in check. But she seems to be doing I know she wants that commitment from Craig. Once Craig can say yes, I think we know that her and Craig are together. So, spoiler alert, sorry.
When I watch it, even though, like you say, I know how this all plays out in the end, my concern for Paige running up to where she is now is that she had come out of this relationship that to me on the outside seemed suffocating.
Yes.
And how she wanted to be with this person and she wanted to be in this monogamous relationship, but she's kind of an overthinker when it comes to relationship, which is good.
There was also an age difference in that relationship.
There was the age difference, right. And she did the right thing about not only looking at where they were, but all the possibilities, future possibilities for this relationship. And depending on whose story you would believe, who broke up with whom, the reality is there was a breakup. The Paige that I saw emerge from it was a person who, coming out of this relationship, I know she knows what she wants for her future, but she was just dipping her foot in all of these different wells. And that concerned me initially because in the end, as a woman, maybe I'm a little old-fashioned, it can get dangerous playing the field the way men play the field. Is it fair? No,
right.
It's not. But that's what I saw. She's pumping the brakes now, though. And that's what I like.
Yeah.
That I think innately that's not who she is, to just play the field.
Right.
And she has narrowed it down. I was it was hard for, who do I want to root for? Andreas or Craig? Because on Southern Charm, Craig was always the underdog, the one you wanted to root for. And he came through.
His pillows are hit.
He came through, and I was so happy for them. So originally I thought, get the girl too. But I also like Andreas.
Yeah.
It's just something, he wants a relationship. He wants
now.
But you also have to give him a pass because, he had his visa and he could stay in the country and I'm going to do this show. And I don't think, that was all new for him.
Right.
Would it be smart to be serious about somebody right out the gate? So I can kind of get where he was coming from.
But I always wanted Craig for her simply because Craig is a monogamous guy.
Yeah.
So this little dalliance into being in this non-committed space, that was new for him. Because remember, Shep would always try to be like, come on, let's just be out with these girls and do this. He was never for that. He was never for the one night stand. He was a relationship guy. And this was his little window of playing the field.
See what it was like.
And ultimately, we know he decided he didn't want to play the field. And I'm hoping he found his person. I'm hoping he did. So that's the Paige and Craig and Andrea's scenario that she chose Craig. And the other couple, it's a couple. So let's talk a little about Danielle and her guy. So Danielle, as I mentioned in part 1, was previously with Carl. She's a workaholic, very smart, very bright, and happy to see that in the winter, was it in the winter house where she met this guy? Or was it in the last summer house? Summer house. Yeah, she wasn't in winter house. No. So it was in the last summer house where she met her chef.
Right. It was right before they did the COVID episode where they stayed in the house.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
And so she met him and it seems to be lasting. They have a couple hiccup moments where his job is all consuming and maybe not seeing her as much as she wants. But he did the work. He surprised her for her birthday, I think it was. Or was it their anniversary? It was their anniversary.
Their anniversary.
It was their relationship anniversary. And he's doing it for her.
He seems to be a relationship guy.
He is. And she did a startup business. And we find out in the last episode that he quit what he thought was his dream restaurant job. And he is, gonna find something else because he wasn't happy. And so how brave of him, because how many people keep working in something and stay miserable? So that says a lot about him. So I'm hopeful for them as a couple and glad to see that she has found her person. So her best friend, Lindsey, on the other hand, she's had, I feel for Lindsey in some ways. I can't say I've always been a huge fan of her because she is like so blunt, direct, and emotional, and she can go from 0 to 10.
Would you say that Paige summed up her relationship status with a neat bow?
Kind of, sort of, she did. She kind of did.
We never know who she's with every weekend because it's a different guy.
Yeah. So a little background on Lindsey. She came into the series with Everett, and they were dating in the house, and they sort of had a Kyle and Amanda thing where the house was like, are they together? Is it working? Is whatever. Ultimately, that relationship failed, and she has had several relationships since then. One that she did have in the last summer house, and that was on, off, and off again relationship. And in between there, she did try a relationship with Carl. But in this, in the winter house, she came in wanting to be with Austin, which we find out that, and he's from Southern Charm. We find out that they had an intimate relationship. They say one time. I don't know if I believe it was just one time. But they kept it in the friend zone, and they were both single now. And she felt like she was coming into the house to now have a relationship with Austin. Well, unbeknownst to her, she came in a week or so late, and Austin and Sierra had already hooked up, and Austin was not trying to check for Lindsey. He was all in with Sierra with a little Madison in the background. And Madison is also from Southern Charm, and we're not going to go there with her.
What is it that Madison has?
She has some kryptonite or something. So J-Lo can thank her for being back with Ben because she apparently blew up that relationship with A-Rod. But I digress.
Oh my goodness.
But Lindsey didn't end up getting with Austin, and there was another gentleman in the house, Jason, and the person he wanted to hook up with in Winter House didn't want him. So him and Lindsey fell into a relationship. And what we find out in Summer House is that Lindsey got pregnant. And she found out one day she was pregnant, and unfortunately the next day she miscarried. And I'm so proud of her for being open about that and sharing that. And I kind of feel like that worked out the way it needed to, because I don't think her and Jason were each other's person. I think they were consoling each other, and they were meeting a need for each other, but I don't think they were it for each other. And so she shared that with Carl. And so as I watch her trying to navigate all these guys, and it's really just hookups, it's no relationships happening, I understand why she's trying to feel a need. But ultimately, another spoiler alert, so if you don't want to know, her and Carl, I want to say they said towards the end of the season and going into Amanda and Kyle's wedding, they began to entertain, let's give this another try. Carl is sober, which is a new thing. I think at the time of this, he's like 6 or 8 months sober or something like that. And he's been very good about keeping his routine, his regimen, doing the things that he knows works, able to still party and hang out with everybody and still not drink. However, the early on stages, Lindsey is still a big drinker. We find out post taping that she too has decided to be sober. And I'm glad for that because I give hope for their relationship. Sierra and Carl kind of liked each other, but Sierra's hesitancy with Carl was that he was sober and she didn't know how that would work for her. And Carl's hesitancy with Sierra was Austin was still in the back of his mind and whether she was really over Austin, which she wasn't. I believe she's there now. So there's some hope on the horizon for Carl and Lindsey. My concern for them is that because of the age and where she's at in her life, I know she's ready to have a baby. And I really, I'm a person that believes you need to give your relationship time before you add a baby. Not every situation allows you to do that, but if you have a choice, don't add a baby to the mix right out the gate if you can help it. But I'm hopeful for them. Hopeful that Sierra and Maya will find their person. We didn't talk much about Luke. He's a different guy, so I don't have a ton to say about him.
Luke is on his journey.
He is on a journey, that's for sure. And as long as there's some outdoors as part of that journey, and
chopping wood,
and doing some welding for his jewelry, and so he will be fine. And hopefully Maya, will find her person, and so a good-hearted group of people that we can root for. And ultimately, you hope that it works out for all of them. So, I think that's kind of all I have on Summer House. Once again, if you haven't watched, go ahead and watch it, check in on that series. And if nothing else, do a quick little watch of Winter House, because that's a little combination of Southern Charm and Summer House together. And, a little, mindless watching TV. So that is our take on Summer House, and that does it for us for this session.
So again, thanks for joining us on Wait, What Am I Thinking? And remember to hit that bell so that you'll be notified as soon as the next episode drops. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again.